Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new video, and today I'm going to do my predictions for Formula 1 drivers 10 years from now. So this is just going to be a video on my predictions on the grid of Formula 1 in 2028. So let's get started. Starting with Mercedes, and it's exactly the same duo who is fighting for Formula 2 this season, and that is George Russell and Lando Norris. I feel like both of these drivers are, championship contenders in the future. Maybe not. But I do see this happening, really. I do see both of them impress in Formula 1, and then they'll eventually, by 10 years from now, I'd see them in Mercedes. Yeah, Russell and Norris, both great drivers, and when Hamilton retires, they'll be both fighting for who will be Britain's fastest driver, who will be bearing the flag for Britain. So, yeah, I do see Mercedes picking these two in the near future. So, yep, Mercedes, Russell and Norris. On to Ferrari, and I do think Charles Leclerc and Mick Schumacher are going to be in that car, in those two cars for Ferrari in 2028. I think Leclerc, of course he's going into Ferrari next season. I think when Vettel retires, he will definitely take that number one seat. And Mick, he is definitely improved in Formula 3. And, of course, that name, Schumacher, Ferrari are going to be really interested in this kid, and so I definitely think Charles Leclerc and Mick Schumacher are going to be in Ferrari. On to Red Bull, and lo and behold, it is exactly the same duo which we have coming for 2019, Verstappen and Gasly. I think both of these drivers are equally talented, and Max, I don't really see him leaving Red Bull. Maybe he might, maybe not. He could go to Mercedes, but I still think that, yeah, I still think he'll stay at Red Bull. Given Red Bull will, if the Honda is good, I do think that Verstappen will stay there until the end of his career, or maybe he will leave Red Bull, but only in his final few years of his career. And I do think he will stay at Red Bull. And Gasly, yeah, I think both of them will stay in Red Bull for 2028. On to Renault, and the first driver which I picked is going to be really controversial, but here we go. So I picked Dan Ticktum and Jack Aitken for Renault in 2028. It's going to be controversial picking Dan Ticktum, knowing what he's done in the past in the lower categories, and I know people are not going to think that he's F1 ready, and maybe he isn't, but I still think that he is developing. Of course I think he is maturing. I think Dan Ticktum is a pretty good talent, and yeah, he's winning in the lower categories, and so I think Dan Ticktum will be in Renault. He will go to Toro Rosso first, and I think he'll eventually, I don't know, I think he'll be ousted from the Red Bull driver program, and so he'll move on to Renault like Carlos Sainz has done. And yeah, so Renault, Ticktum and Aitken. On to Force India, and well, of course Force India won't be called Force India by then, it will probably be called Force Canada. And lo and behold, I've picked two Canadian drivers. Lance Stroll, of course, as long as his father is in that team principal role, or the owner, Stroll will be in that seat. And then I picked Lafiti for Force India because, of course, he's a Canadian driver. He's a third driver, and I do think when Perez retires, Lafiti's going to be moving into that second driver role. So Force India, Stroll and Lafiti. Over to Haas now, and I picked Fuoco and Lacey. Both have connections to the Ferrari Young Drivers program, and I do think they will get Formula 1 seats eventually. Fuoco, he really did play second fiddle to Charles Leclerc and was completely outclassed by him. So I don't think he will be at a top team, but I do think he will get into Formula 1 eventually when people start retiring. Alesi, of course, another young driver from the Ferrari program. Yeah, I think both of them will be at Haas, because Haas is really a Ferrari junior team along with Sauber, so I do think that there'll be both Ferrari drivers in there in 2028. So, yep, for Ocon and Alesi for Haas. Williams now, and we have Markelov and Ocon. Markelov has, yeah, he's a good driver in Formula 2, and I do think, yeah, I think Sergei Sorokin, I don't think he's good enough for Formula 1. He'll eventually be pushed from the wayside and be replaced by Markelov in Williams. And then we have Esteban Ocon, who I don't see him in a top team. I think he will come into Formula 1 again, but this has ruined his career in kind of a way. Yeah, and I think think that with faster youngsters, you know, I think he'll be this generation's Hulkenberg, really, in terms of lost talent, really. You know, he's always in the midfield. So, yeah, I think Williams, Markelov, and Ocon. For Toro Rosso, we have Harry Thompson and Jack Doohan. Harry Thompson, you may not have heard of him, but he is currently karting, and he's really young, so Toro Rosso is a really hard one to pick, because yeah, it's a young driver team. So of course there might be some drivers out there who we don't really know of who'll be in those seats come 2028. But I do think this was the most logical one with the drivers which we have. Thompson is he's one of the youngest drivers from the Red Bull Young Drivers program, and Jack Doohan, son of a MotoGP champion, impressing somewhat. So I think, yeah, that's the most logical one out of all the ones which we know of, really. McLaren now, and we have De Vries and Carlos Sainz. De Vries has impressed in Formula 2, personally, and yeah, I think him being a Dutch driver, I just see him in that McLaren role come 2028, and I do see him in Formula 1 soon enough. Yeah, he's a good talent, and I wouldn't call him world class, but I do see him as a Formula 1 driver. Carlos Sainz, I don't know. I think this season is really, yeah, I think when he moves to McLaren, there's not really anywhere else for him to go, really. And yeah, he's going to struggle in that McLaren, so I don't really see him in a top team, because I think he's kind of wasted his opportunity at Renault, through no fault of his own, really. But yeah, I just see, De Vries and Sainz at McLaren for 2028. Finally, at Sauber, we have Enzo Fittipaldi and Callum Ilott. Fittipaldi had, brother of Pietro Fittipaldi, but out of both of those Fittipaldis, I do think Enzo will go into Formula 1, because Pietro, he's focusing on the World Endurance Championship and IndyCar. Wait, IndyCar? I don't know, really. I think I've heard him go into IndyCar, so yeah, I think he's more focused on American and sports cars, really. Callum Ilott, yeah, I can see this happening. He's another young Ferrari driver, so I think he will go into for Sauber when Raikkonen and Ericsson are pushed out the wayside, really. So, yeah, Sauber, Fittipaldi and Ilott. So these are my picks for the 2028 grid. Now, of course, there has been talk of a 3-car grid, and really, it's going to be hard for me to predict 3-car grids. So I just went with 2 because it's really hard to pick new drivers. Like it's yeah, you know what I mean. It's really hard to pick 3 drivers for one team. So I've decided just go with the 2 for now. But of course I will predict there's going to be 3 cars for 2028. It's been talked about a lot, and yeah, I think 3 driver grids will come into effect come 2028. Of course, this is highly speculative, but this is just my personal opinion. I'd like to know your opinions on this matter in the comments. And yeah, overall, I think I chose wisely, somewhat. And yeah, I think this is the most logical one with the drivers which we know and watch currently, and yeah, are in like Formula 2 and that kind of stuff. So yeah, guys, that is it for this video. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, and goodbye.